having grown up in Brazil, Felipe Canedo moved to the UK to work for global telecoms firm Vodafone. He is now the global head of engineering and transformation and a true technologist at heart. He writes code in his spare time and is passionate about tech innovation for the greater good. We talk about the recent explosion of interest around Chat GPT and how artificial intelligence is going to change the telecom sector and potentially society at large. Quite similarly, we discuss 5G, and we also discuss Philippe's view and methodology on leadership and leading teams remotely. And we also talk about Vodafone's recent announcement. They've just sold their HQ in Newbury in light of this sort of shift to working from home, which I thought was really interesting. I always love talking to true technologists like Philippe. He's a great guy, lots of valuable insight, opinions, anecdotes. I think this is a really enjoyable and insightful conversation, so I hope you enjoy it. It's Felipe Canedo. Philippe, thank you so much for coming on the Tech Leaders podcast. I'm really excited. I know you're a busy man, so I appreciate you giving some time to us. I know you've got a lot going on at Vodafone at the moment, but you're obviously in a leadership role at the moment, Philippe. But what does good leadership mean to you?
Yeah, I think that the main goal of any leader should be to have the ability to bring people together to achieve a common goal, right? I think that the biggest problems that you have today in the company is that you have too many people doing too many things, and then you have to be able to coordinate them, to inspire them, and to make sure that they can come along with your vision, with your ideals, and so on and so forth. So for me, the first and foremost for a leader, what I would expect is that ability to bring people together, to sell your goals, to communicate very well your goals, and people will follow you eventually. So for me, this is the main and the most important traits of a leader.
I think that sentence, move people together to achieve a common goal, I think that's one of the most succinct, concise, and apt definitions of leadership. I think that hits the nail on the head, Philippe. I really like that one. So look, for those who don't know who you are and don't know too much about Vodafone, could you just give us a little bit of an introduction to yourself, like a high-level overview of your career and how you joined Vodafone?
Yes, of course. I'm from Brazil. I came to UK about 6 years ago to work with Vodafone. So I have an early start on my career. I was like 14, 15, as I was working, those sort of things like assembly computers and all of that stuff. And then I remembered when I was 16, I was teaching some people on how to use Microsoft Office and Windows. Was a thing at that time in 1998, 99. So, sure. And I think that was one of the things that took me into this IT path. So very early, I was adopting, I was an early adopter of the internet with those IRC messaging, talking to people, which was most of them were bots. So was a cool thing at that time that there wasn't much more that you had. So those type of things made me think about going to IT, and then I decided to go to the university on IT. And I started my career working for Telefónica, which is a telecommunications company. I was a software developer then. I learned a lot there. Was a great experience for me in terms of technical skills and how to manage software at scale. At some point in time, I decided to come back to Oi, which is a company in Brazil that was like a BT here in UK, was an incumbent of the telecommunications, the biggest one in Brazil. There, I've met the CIO of that company at the time. Was 2011, I think. And after a couple of years, I think 5 years, he had this opportunity to come to UK and to be the CIO of Vodafone UK. And he asked me if I wanted to come along with him. And then I came over and started then my career here in UK. It was a big challenge to move with the family, with my wife, my son, but we got there, and eventually I made my career here. I went from Vodafone UK to Vodafone Group, where I am now as a head of engineering and transformation.
You have obviously worked your way up from software engineer, you've done an MBA, you're now the global head of engineering. Can you tell us about what that means? What is the purpose of your role and what are you responsible for?
So just to give you a bit of context, Vodafone, it's as you know, is a big company. But if you see over the last 5 years, we've been on this journey to transform Vodafone into a tech company. And one of the first things that we learned on that process that if you want to be a truly tech company, you cannot be a fragmented company, right? You cannot operate in different countries in different ways. You have to have the ability to reuse your assets, to reuse your knowledge, your intellectual capital in a consistent way. So one of the things that we decided then to do is say, let's create this global IT area and let's make sure that you can bring the developers across the Europe together, build one single software to deploy it many times across different countries. So one of my most important goals is to enable this community of developer to work together in different countries, in different communities, and then share their knowledge, share their assets, and reuse most of the things that they do. So my team is basically a team of platform engineering that's from software, since the requirements to the strategy and portfolio, to the development, going through deployment into production, and then running the things into operations. We provide all of those communities with the platforms in order to enable them to deliver those things. If you go to operations, all of the systems to control operations like IT service management, the monitoring tools, the logging tools, get information from IT into, for example, Splunk, where you consolidate all of the logging to take information out of that. Azure DevOps, Jira Line, or Jira, all of those tools that we manage, we develop some of them we buy from the market.
Yeah.
And then we use. One of the most important tools that you have today is that our machine learning or artificial intelligence platform, which is basically a platform that we are using now to do two main things. One is to predict when an incident will happen in production and therefore create an alarm to the operations team so they can understand what and how to prevent that incident from happening. And then in other hand, which is something that is a bit more incipient, we are using machine learning to try to understand what is the root cause of that problem and how to fix that problem once and for all to make sure that doesn't happen anymore.
We will come back to that, and especially AI, because I want to get your thoughts on that and how that's going to change your remit and maybe the telecom sector in general. But what attracted you to the tech sector? Talk us through why you chose a career in this line of work.
I was always an early adopter of the internet. So everything about chatting, messaging, games, and all of that stuff, I've always been very geek in using those things. I remember when I was young, like 15, 16, I started to do HTML websites at home to understand how it works. I love to see those things. And I think that was very natural for me to get into that because that was, I was living at the moment and it was something that excited me. So it was a very natural, I would say, way to get into IT area. It could be software engineering, it could be more a project manager role, but I decided to go to software engineering, which is where my heart was at that time.
Yeah, sure. No, that makes sense. So why did you move to the UK then? How did that move come about?
So yeah, I've been working in Brazil in many different companies, in consultants and in the industry itself, in the telecommunications. I've met a lot of people. So I understood that adding an international experience to my career would be very beneficial.
Yeah.
Especially is from a professional point of view, but also from a personal point of view, right? For me, for my family, to learn new cultures, to understand different ways of living and working. So for me, it was just another experience in terms of how to learn new cultures and work in a different country. For me, it was a phenomenal experience on that aspect.
Yeah, having done that myself, I completely concur and understand that. You must, I'm sure you're a proud Brazilian. I know Brazilians tend to be some of the most patriotic people I've ever come across. So a kind of a double question. So what do you miss most about Brazil? And what was the biggest cultural difference moving from Brazil to the UK?
I think that what I miss most from Brazil is undoubtedly the food. I love the
I
food
knew
in
you'd
Brazil.
say
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah. So for me, the food is the big deal. I'm not really bothered about the weather. I'm not a beach guy that like to go to the beach and
yeah.
stay there, bath sun and all of that stuff, right? So weather is not a big deal for me, but food is a big deal. So at my home, I always cook Brazilian food. I buy specific ingredients from Brazil and etc. So
Sure.
I can, especially now working from home, it's something that I can do it myself. So it's much easier for me.
So what's the standard of Brazilian food like in London then? Because there's a couple of Brazilian restaurants, I believe, isn't there? So
Yes.
what's the verdict, Philippe?
Yeah, I think that most people see Brazilian as this barbecue
Yeah,
restaurant, so that where you go and eat a lot of meat, right? So I think for me this is the most traditional view of the Brazilian food. But look, Brazil it's a big country, right? So there's a variety of
sure.
foods, different foods from north to south. So it's a long, and there's influence from Europe as well. So pasta, all of the stuff we have in Brazil. So there's a many diverse menu of food in Brazil.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of digital transformation and technology then, was the UK ahead of Brazil, or was it around about the same when you moved over? You know, what did you take from a technology perspective? What was that transition like for you?
I think that this is very a lot industry by industry. For
Yeah.
example, one of the things that was shocking to me, and it still is the number of the lack of features that we have in UK in terms of banking. If you take away all of the fintechs like Revolut and all of those banks, the standard banks like HSBC, their apps very old, like a lot of features. If you compare it to Brazil, Brazil is much more advanced. There's much more features. You can do
Yeah.
everything that you can through an app today. It's a lot different. In
Yeah.
telecommunications, though, I think that we are much at the same level. I don't think that there's much difference on the telecommunications. I think that one thing that I like in UK is that the long-term thinking. So when we decided to do a project here, we know that we are going to have high and lows and we are going to have difficult moments, but we keep going. And sometimes in Brazil, we give up too easily. So this is something for me that was very interesting also to understand from that cultural aspect that I learned from here in UK.
Yeah, it's funny you should say about banking because we had the chief technologist of Starling Bank on a couple of years ago, and he told me something which I always remembered, which was before Metro Bank was formed, I think it was in the 90s, there was a 100-year gap where no new bank had been created in the UK. So all the
Yes,
banks got
yes,
created in the 1800s,
exactly.
and there was no
Yes,
banks until the 90s. That's astonishing, isn't it?
yes,
I think
yes.
wasn't the case in South and North America. I think banks of entrepreneurialism within the banking sector has kind of kept going.
There is a movie now on Netflix called The Bank of Daves or The Dave's Bank, something like
Oh,
that.
right. I'll have to check
Which it
that.
check that one. It tells this history of, it was the first bank that was created after 105 years, I think, in UK.
Maybe that's
So
the
very
story.
interesting.
We'll put that on the show notes then, okay? So I wanted to talk to you about milestones in your career then. What, just to finish off in terms of your your career journey. What was the sort of, any watershed moments, any milestone moments, any things that stick out for you as have been pivotal, which have set you on this path?
Yeah. I think that I would say there are two big moments in my career that define who I am now. I think that the first one is that when we start coding and programming, it's very joyful, right? It's easy to do. You get on with it. You are focused, and you start doing things. But what you don't see is that when you are a junior developer, you have a lot of people to help you. You have a lot of people to coach you. People will a very high degree of collaboration. But as you go up and up on the ladder of the technical aspect of it, you become an architect or something like that. We start to learn that, look, there's no one else to ask questions, right? You have to find it yourself. So that was
Yeah.
a defining moment for me when I was architect, that I said, oh, now I realized that I had no one to ask questions apart from Google. So, and then I started to create my own solutions and stop relying on what was out there, on what was already done, and I created my own solutions, my my own way of working and define standard patterns and so on and so forth. So for me, was like a revelation to say, okay, I can do that. It's possible. And I think that was very good for me. It was realization, professional realization as well, to say, okay, I'm capable of doing that.
Yeah.
That was the first one. The second one was when I became senior manager, because since then my career was very much technical. I was leading a small team of developers and etc., but very, very focused on the technical capabilities. When I became a senior manager, though, everything has changed, right? I realized that I could do much more influencing people than writing coding myself. And that's very tough. Then I realized that's very tough, because then we get into politics, then you get into psychology to bring that thing of bringing people together. And then was the second moment where I had very good bosses that helped me along the way to coaching me, saying how the things work, and I listened to them, people with had more experience than myself. So that was the second moment that I saw that, look, I can do some difference, but if I really want to do a big difference in the world, I need to become a leader that will influence people and bring those people together to deliver the things. That was, I would say, my second defining moment on my career.
And how hands-on are you these days, Felipe? You code very often?
Yes, at home. I code for everything. I was since I was doing gaming for my son, we tried to do it together using Unity engine.
Oh, that's cool.
Recently, what I did was I just did an app to connect to Chat GPT to see how it works. Very easy. JSON with HTTP requests. Very easy, but again, only at home. I don't do that at work anymore, unfortunately, but I still have my joy and play around at home sometimes.
Sure. That's a good segue into ChatGPT. I wanted to talk to you about that because it's blown my mind. I've been very, very enamored with it over the last couple of months, as I know a lot of people have, okay? But in the context of coding, a friend of mine told me that he was so impressed with the coding that come out of ChatGPT through simple queries that he actually said, and I don't know if he was joking, that myself, who is not a coder, could probably get a job as a remote coder as long as I can blag it in team meetings and obviously deliver a lot of really, really high-level code quite seamlessly through ChatGPT. Do you see it like that? And does this change the game for software engineering?
I think, to be honest, first of all, on the ChatGPT as a whole, I think this is what we can call ChatGPT. It's a Google 2.0, right? It is something that has the natural language processing, so it can understand the human in a natural ways of conversation. And it has a huge data source of information that they use in order to correlate the things that you have asked, right? So for me, it's a Google 2.0.
Yeah.
In terms of coding, right? So one thing that I think that people need to realize is that most of the time that we spend in order to build a new software is not actually coding. Coding is around 20%, 30% of the whole thing.
Yeah.
We have a lot of requirements, a lot of understanding what are the business rules on how it works and etc. Rules that sometimes are not written anywhere but on the head of the people. Then we have all of that complex thing about testing, deploying to production and operating it. So I think that ChatGPT would be a great tool to augment the capacity of the developer, but it will never replace the developer. I think that's going to be a partner to help augment and test hypotheses and make it better and easier and more productive for a developer to do it.
Yeah, sure. So the future software engineer is going to be as much about interacting with technology like ChatGPT as well as writing code, if that makes sense. So I think that's the key thing, isn't it?
Another thing that I believe about the ChatGPT as well is that because I created some machine learning models, right? And I think that I don't see any reason of why, for example, a Google in a 2, 3, 5 years horizon won't come with something like that, because they have a massive amount of data whereby they can train their models and they have the money to invest in the people to building it. So what I see on the ChatGPT and with a high level of certainty is that on the 3 to 5 years horizon, I think that solutions like ChatGPT will be a bit of commodity for the big techs. I don't think that's going to be one platform like ChatGPT. I think that will be multiple platforms like ChatGPT.
Yeah, I think ChatGPT, there's already competitors of ChatGPT, which are apparently as good or not far off as good. And don't forget, this is just ChatGPT 3.5 we're on now, and I think ChatGPT 4 is coming out soon. So I think I didn't realize that every query you put in is only up until 2021, I think.
Yes.
There's no data after that. So the next one is going to be really exciting.
Yes.
So look, just in terms of more broader AI, artificial intelligence, Philippe, what are you most excited about? Unless maybe to start with, I want to basically slant that question towards the telecom sector, your industry. How is AI going to change your industry over the next 3 to 5 years?
I think that AI is already changing the industry. I think that the main thing about AI is that what I like to explain to people is that AI is something that are teaching computers to not give you an exact answer, right? Today, the problem with computer, of the limits of the computation, is that every time that you try to do something with a computer, it tries to give you the exact answer. But when you are in such a complex environment with such a huge amount of information, you cannot do that. You cannot have 100% of precision. So AI will help with mathematical models, will help you giving 99% of precision on your answers, and that's what 90% of the business needs, right? So it's going to help a lot. It's helping us a lot, for example, as I was saying, to predict failures in our networks, in our IT systems. It's going to help us to find the root cause of those failures and maybe giving hints to the developers and say, look, that part of the code you should be looking at, or that part of the code you should be changing.
Yeah.
It's going to help also to have a better customer experience with things like Chat GPT and the bots in general, how you can have a more natural conversation with the humans, and therefore you don't need to wait for long queues on the call centers and etc. So it's going to help a lot on the customer experience. There's a lot of information also on the data and business intelligence environments, how you can apply AI model to understand better your customers, to focus on the right products, to develop the right products to your end customers. And all of those things we are already doing in Vodafone. So if you combine artificial intelligence with IoT, I think that the future is on the hands of companies like Vodafone and telecommunications, plus the cloud service provider. In fact, I believe that not so long term, I think that Vodafone will be actually competing with AWSs and other companies that are cloud providers. I think that, in my opinion, this is one of the big misses that all of the telecommunication industry had in the past, was we should have become those cloud providers. But we focused too much on the hardware and forgot about the software. And then Amazon came with everything.
So what are you most concerned about in relation to the evolution of artificial intelligence? What societal changes do you see over the next 5 years as a result of AI?
Yeah, I think that talking about jobs, right? I think that it's very important to people that they use AI and AI tools as their allies, are their partners on whatever they do, especially those repetitive jobs, things that you do today in spreadsheets, things that you do, for example, pre-sales and all of that stuff. I think this is going to be more and more done by AI. So for me, on the societal impact, is that people will have to upskill themselves, understand how this new world of AI is going to work, and they have to use AI as an ally and not try to avoid it. Because if you avoid it, you are going to get out of the market and you won't have a job, a proper job, or a highly paid job to work with. So for me, this is one of the things. I think that there are many advancements, especially on the health industry, with AI, especially with the image recognition, in order to, they can see an image and recognize, for example, cancer and all of that stuff. So this is, I think, this is very beneficial to the society. It's going to help a lot because, as you know, the human eyes can fail, but a computer will be very rarely fail. So this is something that's going to help a lot. I think on the broader context, I think that as technology today is much more essential part of our lives. So everything that you touch today has a bit of technology, from your television to your phone to your relation with the people, everything is technology. In the future, everything will be AI, right? You're going to speak to your phone, you are going to speak to your TV. Some people already do that very well. You're going to speak to your home. Some people already doing that as well. And it is going to become more and more prevalent in the future with AI. On the gloomy side, if you like, I think that there's a huge potential for augmentation of hackers and malwares and all of that stuff. So the same way that it helped good people to do good things, it will help bad people to do bad things. And as with any technology, right, nuclear bombs and etc., you can have two ways of going about it, right? One is the right way, another one is the wrong way. And definitely will be people trying to go with the wrong way. You can see that someone already created a malware with Chat GPT. But look, this is inevitable for the progress. If you, it's a choice, right? In order to create a technology, you need to have your open-minded that some people will try to do things that are not good for the society with that tool. So you need to try to create some sort of controls and checks to avoid those type of things happening at scale.
So on the subject of tech innovation, then we've spoken about AI, but there's another big technology innovation in your sector, which is going to change a lot of things, which is 5G, obviously. What is 5G and how is it going to change the telecom sector?
Yeah, 5G is a high-speed, low latency technology that will enable everyone that has a 5G connection to have a very high bandwidth with very low latency to receive any sort of content. And then you might ask, okay, but why do I need one gigabyte of internet or something like that, right? So the reason being is that we are going to have 3D games, you are going to have virtual reality things, you are going to have cars that are connected, and sometimes they are going to have autonomous cars that needs to have a very low latency communications with their servers, and all of those things require a very reliable and secure and fast connection to make these worlds of connected things work. And then I think for us in Vodafone, we have two big things that we need to focus over the next couple of years. One is the IoT, so the Internet of Things.
Sure.
That we are going to create many platforms to connect all of those things, to connect your home, to connect your car, to connect your things in general. And also there's something that is still incipient. I think that is going to increase more with the 6G, which is the edge computing, right? To have a huge amount of power on the hands of everyone, on the house of everyone that we can use to help us processing things and giving more information and augmented our computer power on the edge. So I think that this is something that will come, and the telecommunications company will have to provide the infrastructure for those things to flourish.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing I'm curious about, Felipe, is, and this is more of a market macro question, but if 5G is obviously going to take mobile internet to the next level, most businesses and most people have a connection through a wire. If 5G is this good, surely the future of connectivity is going to be through a receiver. It's not going to be through a wire.
First of all of our wireless connection, they always have a fiber at some point in time, right? You connect your phone to the antenna, and the antenna has a fiber that connects it to Vodafone, and Vodafone connects it to the world. So it's always be essential to have a fixed network underlying all of the services. But as you say, there will be many different use cases, right? Maybe at your home, it won't be necessarily a game changer, but will be a game changer for example, in industries where you have to have for example, autonomous truck to carry something for you. You have to have an autonomous car, right? So, or you have to have on-the-go delivering something. You have to have some things that we are seeing today, remote surgeries, that people are doing that remotely. And sometimes you don't have a fixed connection to do all of those things. So for me, and another thing that is very important for us to understand is that the world that we see today, it's going to be very different than the world that we see in 5 years, right? So what we are doing now is we are preparing the infrastructure that we are going to build the software and the use cases in the future to run on top of that infrastructure. So it's a layered approach, right? First, you have to give the infrastructure, then we are going to have the innovations that come through of that things. It's just like if you see in the 2000s and the end of 2000s, 2010, the movement from a very static consumer content consuming to a much more focused on video consumer like YouTube and etc. That happened because the technology allowed us to do that.
No, absolutely. That's really interesting. What other tech innovation are you excited about, Philly? We've talked about 5G, AI. Is there anything else that's on your radar at the moment that you think is going to be quite disruptive, not only to telecoms, but to sort of broader society?
I think that one of the biggest things that I see coming now is that robotics with replacing labor in industry. You can see the Boston Robotics company.
They're incredible, aren't they?
Exactly. They are incredible. And this is just a matter of time before those bots get into the industry. You can see, for example, in the Amazon warehouses, it's almost fully automated. Yeah. And this is, but today it's only for those big, massive companies that can do that. I think that what's going to happen in the next couple of years is that those things will be more accessible and cheaper. And then we are going to start to have robots across the board to do a more physical labor job. Like you have Roomba today cleaning your house, you are going to have more robots doing things for you. Maybe cutting your grass, who knows, or cleaner your window that you have to pay someone to do it for you today. So all of those things that you still have to pay a human being to do it for you. Probably in a couple of years, I would say 5 to 10 years, you would have that for you.
Wow, that soon?
That soon, yes. Because look, we have technology for that. What we are working now is that we are working to scale that up in a way that it's cheap enough that people can buy it.
Yeah, sure. Do you think it would be wise to suppress this innovation in order to allow the workforce to catch up? Supposing Amazon sacked all their workers tomorrow and went completely robotic and automated, there'd be a huge problem for a lot of towns and cities, you know what I mean? And imagine if every other company then followed, and then we would have millions and millions of people out of work. This is obviously just you and I having a conversation on a very broad, high macro level here. But I mean, have you got any thoughts on that? Because I mean, the transition over to this completely digital, AI-based robotics world, there's a lot of change management around that, isn't there?
Yes.
And, you know, what do you think about that?
I think this is a very complex discussion. There's no easy answer to that. I think that one of the things that I personally believe that we are heading to in the next at least 20 years to a universal income. I don't believe that will be enough job to everyone. And I think that we are going to have a safe net around universal income for the people that just want to have their basics covered. And then people will work in order to do the extra. I think that there's another line of thought is that every technology revolution always comes with new jobs, with new ideas, right? Was that the industrial revolution? Was that the information revolution? Was that like that? So I think that also we don't know what the type of the jobs the future will be, right? Maybe we are going to have to need to do something that we cannot have visibility today, that we will observe that workforce. But as you say, there will always be some parts of that workforce left behind, right? You cannot expect that someone that is 50 years old today will adapt to a world of robots in the next 10 years, right? It's a big leap. But the newborns, the people that are growing now, they are going to have to do something to do. And I believe that this revolution could also come with new jobs, with new things that we do not have visibility today. I don't think that's always doom and gloom. I think that it's just a matter of how we are going to go through that transformation period and how we make sure that we do not let anyone left behind on that transition.
I think that's exactly it. We don't want technology creating more inequality, do we? We want it to correct inequality. So
exactly.
No, that's a fantastic point, Philippe. So I wanted to move this to sort of work culture then. Obviously, we've not long come out of a global pandemic. There was a press release quite recently, maybe 2 days ago, about Vodafone selling their HQ in Newbury and obviously renting it back, but selling it nonetheless. And I'm guessing this is a response to the new world of work and hybrid working and so on and so forth. So the question is, how has Vodafone culturally, how has Vodafone changed as a result of the pandemic?
We changed a lot, right? I think that when the pandemic hit us, we were in a very good position from a technology point of view because we already had the systems and platforms to enable our workforce to work remotely. So on Fridays, mostly of the people already worked remotely. So technology-wise, we just need to uplift our capacity and so on and so forth. I think that the cultural aspect of it, we are still learning as any other company.
Sure.
It's very hard. It's very hard to find the balance between being present, physically present, and doing things through Teams and Zoom and those type of calls. So what we are learning now, and I don't have an answer for that, is that it's how can we make sure that we maintain a high-level performance team which is culturally engaged, working remotely. I think that's what we say is that the cultural aspect of it is just like a bank, right? You put money every time that you get together with the people, you put a little bit of money in there. But when we start to have these long periods of not getting together and working remotely, you would take money away from that. What you have to do is to make sure that you have a balance, that your account is always net zero, and you're not trying to overdraft and try to use more than you can, and then you break your cultural aspect of it, and therefore you are going to create more problem than solutions, and your productivity will dip. This is one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is that today we work in a hybrid model, and therefore this news that you have seen about the sale of the Newbury offices related to that. We don't need anymore that amount of buildings because people are not working every day on the offices. So it's a very pragmatic approach. But the problem is, as I said, we are still learning, right? We are in a hybrid work mode, but we are still fine-tuning what is the best way to do that, because different people has different expectations. So one thing that we have noted in Vodafone is that the younger people, they like to go into the office. They like to go into the office to speak to other people, to learn more, to have that contact. Most of those people, they live alone in an apartment, so it's also an opportunity for socialization and etc. So I think that there are many different people in different stages of their lives that they are going to have different needs, whether to go to the office or not. And the key of the companies that will succeed in the future on how to find the balance for all of those people to come together when they need to, and to work remote when they need to.
How have you adapted your leadership style, Philippe? And I'm not talking maybe not like in terms of the way you talk to people and stuff like that. I'm talking about, do you have like a team meeting every day with all of your team over Teams or Zoom or whatever? Is that how you do it? How have you sort of adapted to a remote leadership role?
No, I think of course I speak to all of my direct reports every day in either calls, phones, and message, WhatsApp, and etc. So it's very easy to communicate today. But we have a weekly meeting with all of my direct reports, everyone together in a virtual room or in a physical room. I did not have to change much things in there. What I have to change though was much more with the wider group, with 500 people that work for me today, on how we bring those guys together, how we communicate with them, how we engage with them, how we keep them engaged with the things that are happening. So that was, I would say, I had to uplift my communications skill and the number of communications that we do with the teams, because sometimes some people can feel that they are, you don't see us anymore, you don't talk to us anymore. So you have to increase your communication and use different channels to communicate with your wider team on these remote worlds of working.
What tips do you have for other managers, other leaders, in terms of conducting online meetings?
My first advice is, and that's what I tell my team every day, only go to a meeting if you are required. Don't go to a meeting to be quiet, right? So the first thing is that, and it goes for online and online. Today, especially today, there's 2, 3, we are triple booked with meetings, but probably those 3 meetings you go there, be quiet and just listen to people talk. So first of all, you have to own your agenda and make sure that you only are in meetings that we are going to add value to the meeting. And if you're not adding value, step out the meeting and say, sorry, but this is not for me. So for me, the most valuable thing, especially in this digital world where you do not have, that conversation with the people on the offices, that only go to meetings that we are really needed and own your agenda. That would be my first tip. As to the frequency of those meetings, I think this is a very personal choice depending on the project, depending on the situation, right? We have some projects that we do daily stand-ups on the teams. We have projects that we do twice a week. So it depends on the projects, it depends on the context, it depends on what you do. I think that there's no specific recipe for that. But for me is that as more you say that you make your team conscious that they have to own their agenda and make sure that they do not attend unnecessary meetings. For me, this is the key for managing it properly.
Perfect. Thank you. That's really good advice, Philippe. So I'm keen to hear what advice you would give to yourself, but your 21-year-old self, Philippe. What would you tell your 21-year-old self, young Philippe in Brazil? What advice would you give that guy?
That's a very tough question. That's a very, very tough question. But I would say that one thing that I have come to realize is that we should believe more in our dreams when we are younger. Because when you get older, you start to see that we are not going to change the world anymore, right? So when you are young, you still think, I can change the world. I can do everything that I want. I can be the king of the world. So one advice that I would give for me on my 20s is that believe in your dreams. Because when you are at that age, you have the energy, you have the power to actually change the world. And when you get older and older, you get family, you are going to get kids, and things are getting more complicated. You're going to have risks that you're going to take. So you have much more to lose, and your energy will be dipping down as well. So for me, one thing that I would tell me is believe in your dreams.
Sure.
And chase them as soon as you can, because we are going to get older very, very quickly.
Absolutely. And the older you get, the less likely it becomes that you can pursue your dreams. So you've got that opportunity when you're young, haven't you, to really influence the rest of your life.
Exactly.
The options close as you get older, unfortunately, don't they? But that's brilliant advice. I completely agree. So have you got a piece of content that's inspired you, Philippe, that you would like to mention maybe as a recommendation?
Look, I have a couple of books that I read. I'm not a big reader, but I do read some books that are interesting for me. One of books that explain, for example, what we are living today, it's machine, platform, and crowds.
Right.
It's a very interesting book that was written, I think, I don't know, 2000, mid 2000, 2010, I don't remember exactly. But explains what's happening in the world today, all of this world of platforms, for example, explain Ubers, explain Airbnbs, explain fintechs, explain the power that you create a platform where people will do business on that platform, and then you just take some part of the money that goes through that platform. So
sure.
That's a book, if you want to understand what's happening in the world today, it's a very good book for you to read.
Machine Platform Crowd by Andrew McAfee and Eric Bjornjofsson. Yeah, so I've not come across that one, Philippe, and I do like a book. So yeah, I'll have to check that one out. But thank you for that. Well, what about anything else? Any movies or documentaries or anything that have inspired you?
Oh look, this is a good one. The Bank of Dave. It's just as how hard it was to open a bank in UK, and what are the interests behind it. It's nothing to do with tech. There's absolutely nothing to do with tech, but it has to do with the willing of someone to do good for his community. And very interesting movie on Netflix. If you have Netflix, you can see it on your subscription.
Sure.
I think that's worth you watching it, especially if you are British.
Yeah, definitely. I am going to check that out because I'm definitely interested in the financial services. The evolution of the fintech sector I find fascinating. Right. So look, last one, Philippe. I just wanted to maybe give the listeners a little bit of a snapshot of Philippe outside of work. Obviously, you're passionate about Brazil, technology. What else are you passionate about outside of your career?
I like to do some sort of coding at home when I can, and when I have time to do it. It's something that I still have passion about, and hopefully I'm going to keep it as I go. I like to travel with my family, especially here in Europe. There's a lot of very beautiful places that you can go and see the world as it is. So
you should go to Wales sometime, Philippe. You should get up to Wales.
I've been to Wales. I've been to Wales already. Snowdonia.
Oh,
I've been to some caves. Yeah, I like that. But yeah, I think traveling is something that I do like a lot. I love Formula One. It's something that I do love. I follow the Formula One. I've been in many Grand Prix. Another recommendation, this is something that I'm very proud to say, that since I came to UK, in 6 years, I think, every single year I went to Goodwood. Goodwood is a festival car that you go there, you see all of the cars in the world with everything is about car, electric cars, old school cars. You have some sort of races and etc. So
Yeah.
it would be something very, if you are into cars, you should not miss it.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. Felipe, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm so grateful that you agreed to do this. But look, thank you so much for coming on the Tech Leaders podcast.
Thank you, Gareth. It was a pleasure to be here with you.
So what a great interview. Felipe is such an easy guy to talk to. I found myself engrossed at times, and I had to stop myself from unpacking things too much because we had an allocated amount of time and I wanted to cover all of the points that I'd planned. So, but the key moments that really stood out for me were, firstly, his definition of leadership. I had to mention that. He completed that question. And moving people together to achieve a common goal, to quote him, word for word. I thought that was fantastic, and he really nailed that one. And also, another thing that I wanted to highlight was his advice for managers and leaders around engaging and motivating teams in a remote working environment. This is something which I believe there's not too much information in the public domain about adapting your style from in-person to online, and there's definitely differences. So I wanted to get Felipe's take on this, and I think he delivered some amazing insight and really gave some great advice as well in terms of what people can actually implement. And I thought that was a really good part of the conversation that I wanted to highlight. So, I mean, in terms of motivating people, in terms of team, like running a team call, for example, or motivating people on a one-to-one basis. So I really hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed doing it. So thank you for listening. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank you for downloading this episode. We really love doing this show and are absolutely humbled by all of the incredible people who download and listen, plus the incredible guests who take the time to come on and share their secrets and experiences with our listeners. Please can I ask that you take a couple of seconds to subscribe or follow the show. This small action means a lot to us and helps us greatly. Thank you. As you quite possibly have heard me mentioning in the past, we record the mass majority of our episodes at an amazing studio facility here in Cardiff at Tramshed Tech. Tramshed Tech is a collaborative community of entrepreneurs and scaling businesses geared towards supporting growth in tech, digital and creative industries across an ever-increasing collection of locations and partner locations, UK-wide and internationally. It really is the perfect place for your business to start up, scale up, accelerate, or innovate. Head over to tramshedtech.co.uk or just search Tramshed Tech on your favorite social media platform.